What's up, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muscle. I'm Mike Shana, as you know. Today I've got a really cool project planned out for us today. So before I show you what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to give a little brief explanation as to kind of why I'm doing it. I'll see if you can guess before I get into it. But I recently had the car at the track, probably within the last week, and I had a lot of funny little issues with it related to not being able to stop. So, kind of in lieu of that, as you probably guessed, we're doing a 6-piston brake upgrade today. Now, these calipers I was able to find for a really good deal. This is the GM Performance upgrade off of the 1LEs. It's a 14.5-inch rotor with a 6-piston caliper, like I said. The ZL1 is a 15.3-inch rotor, but obviously, I don't need that on this car. It's a daily driver still, and the ZL1 rotors and calipers were ridiculously expensive. It was going to be over $2,000 just for the front brakes. So these are these ones. I got a great deal on them, like I said, and then I've also got some 2-piece rotors as well that I was able to get for also a steal. So today I'm going to be showing you how to install these. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, if you've done your brakes before, it's actually a fairly simple job. You're not going to need many tools. You're going to need an 18mm socket to pull off the bolts holding your caliper on, and you're also going to need a hammer and a chisel or a tap to knock the pins out of the caliper itself. And obviously, you know, a floor jack and the tools required to pull your wheel off depending on if you have different lugs on it and if you have a wheel lock or not. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Now I'm going to pull off the lugs. So now that those are off, we're going to remove the wheel. It's a little bald from track days, I'd say. It's alright, it's fine. Okay guys, so I apologize, I misspoke. Weirdly enough, that I just found out is the 1LE caliper has an 18mm bolt that holds it on. However, the stock SS caliper has a 13/16" bolt that holds it on, which is kind of weird. I'm not sure why, but I had the bolts for the 1LE caliper sitting to the side. That's why I used those to measure, and I thought it was an 18mm. But upon further inspection, I found out that it was actually a 13/16. So we're gonna go ahead and pull these off. Like I said, there's 2 bolts on the back side of this, right on the knuckle. They're pretty easy to get off. They might just take a little bit of elbow grease though. Now that the bolts are loose, we're gonna remove the pins. There's one located here, one located there as well. What I like to do is set the tap up on the end of it and gently hit it. It should push right through. That. And then what you can do is there's a spring-loaded clip inside of the caliper itself, as you can see here. Now this clip, to remove the springs even easier, you're going to push down on the top of it, and the clip, the pin will slide right out, like that. And that's filthy too, by the way. So always grease these when you don't, which I'll show later in the video. And same goes to the bottom one. And there's the second. And then these kind of suck to get out sometimes. If you pull on the tops of them, you can wiggle them loose. It's usually easier to get them out together like that. Once you get that spring off, it's easier, but it makes everything more difficult with that in there. So it might come out together like that. And fun fact, you see all this brake dust from tracking it, but fun fact, you're actually supposed to replace your calipers, especially when you're tracking the car, when the pad material reaches the same thickness as this backing plate, because once that happens, it's not dissipating any more heat, and you're just trapping heat, and you're going to overheat your brakes even faster and continue to wear your pad faster. So really, this is the best time to change them. Another thing you're going to want too that I forgot to mention is some type of bin to you can let brake fluid dump into, because once you pull the hose off the back of the caliper, it's going to make a mess. You don't want that to get all over your garage floor, especially if it's one like this where it's coated. It can sometimes eat the finish away and ruin it. So make sure to have something below it too. Now using a 14mm wrench, we're going to loosen the bolt on the back side of the caliper that's holding the brake hose on. And as you loosen it, you're going to start to see a lot of brake fluid come out. Like that. Make sure you don't lose these bolts either. Okay, now with everything disconnected, we can actually remove the caliper. here's the second bolt. And this is your OEM brake caliper that comes on the Camaro SS's. So comparing this to the other one, as you can see, there's a slight size difference. 2 more pistons, of course, but not bad overall. It'll be a good upgrade. Okay, now obviously the next step is going to be removing the rotor itself. Most people's cars, I would assume, would have a bolt that's holding the rotor on. I don't. Mine got stuck in the hub and broke off, so I ended up grinding it out. Long story short, I don't have a bolt anymore. You don't actually need it though. It's mainly for the assembly process at the factory. This just holds the rotor in place to ensure an easy assembly. So as you'll notice, there's a lot of rust that kind of builds up on this hub over time. And to ensure that your new rotor fits on there properly, we're gonna go ahead and wire wheel it. But make sure to cover up your lines so you don't get any crap in your brake hose. All right, now for the fun part. Here's this giant dinner-like platter size 14.5-inch rotor. This will be cool. I can't wait to try these things out. Let's go ahead and line them up. And there we go. She's on. Unfortunately, one thing I didn't quite realize is that the stainless braided lines that I had on here originally with my 4-piston calipers will not work with the 6-piston. The plug for it, or where you bolt it onto the caliper, is too low. So I'm really glad that the guy included his other brake hose. So we're gonna use a T15 Torx bit, and we're gonna remove this paneling back here to access the brake hose connection, I should say. Another little detail that I noticed as well is when you go to put this caliper on, it's going to hit your dust shield right on the bottom. So you can either A, grind the bottom of your dust shield off, or B, just take it off with the 3 10 mil bolts that hold it on like I did. And then it fits pretty well. It's a really tight fit. Mine makes a little bit of noise that I'm weary of, but I think it's just how it's supposed to be. So we're going to see how it sounds when it's back all together and everything's tight. I bolted the caliper up, I slid the pads in, and then actually, here it is. The 6 pistons are a little bit different than the 4 pistons. They have this like center bolt that goes to the top of the caliper that you have to unbolt, and you can slide the pads in from the top. So that's pretty easy to do. That's all I did so far. But now I'm gonna put the pins back in, get everything situated and tight, and then I'm gonna move the other side and do the other side of the car, and then we're gonna go ahead and bleed these. Another important step to make sure you always follow through on too is greasing your pins. This will ensure your brakes don't squeak, because even after you put brand new brakes in the car, they still can squeak, and that's because of lack of grease. So make sure to do that. One small thing I wanted to make note of is that I did install this track-ready dust shield that the car comes with stock. I was thinking about it, and I figured it's there for a reason. It's probably there to protect that ball joint. So I put it back on. I'm probably going to end up putting on these those air deflectors as well. I've got them sitting on the floor right there. So I'm going to put those on, and that'll be about done with the side. My brother's picking up some .4 brake fluid right now, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on the other side. All right, guys, so while doing the other side, I noticed a little problem that might have attributed to bad brakes, and this is reason number 1 why you should always be checking your brakes after you track the car. So these are these stainless braided lines that I got with the rubber casing, and you can see how hot it got right there. It's actually discolored. I can get some better light. There we go. It's actually discolored, and it's cracking and falling apart. So that literally could have been my brakes right there, blowing and putting the car into a wall. Not good. Always check your brakes. So initially I was gonna show how to bleed your brakes, but I ended up running out of daylight. Funny enough, my brother took a little bit longer than I would have expected to get the brake fluid, so I ended up just doing it on my own time and doing it off camera just because it was easier. But there's a lot of videos out there on how to bleed your brakes, so make sure you go and take a look at those if you don't already know how to bleed your brakes. It's a really simple process, just gravity bleeding or even power bleeding with somebody pressing their foot on the brake. It makes it a heck of a lot easier. And as far as the brake installation itself goes, all you're going to want to do is repeat this exact same process on the other side of the car. It's the same exact as the side that I showed you. It's very easy, pretty simple to follow along as long as you follow my steps. But if you guys do happen to have any questions about this install, make sure to comment below, and I'll do my best to respond to any questions you have about the install, about parts, where I got them, prices, any of that stuff, let me know. And speaking of brakes, my old brakes are for sale. I've got the 4-piston calipers, the pads, and the rotors. If anyone's interested, let me know. We'll get in contact and I can sell you those. They're in great shape. They work awesome. But the conclusion I'm sure you've all been waiting for, the new brakes are awesome. They stop fantastically. Paired with the DOT4 brake fluid, they handle great on the track. The car stops amazingly. It's really incredible. I'd highly recommend it if you track your car over the summertime or just drive it pretty hard on the street. So as always, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and like I said, if you have any questions, comment below.